My brother's wedding cost more than most people's houses. $200,000. Crystal lights, a string quartet, white roses everywhere. Everyone looked like money. Everyone smelled like expensive perfume. And there I was, standing near the kitchen doors like I belonged to the staff, because in my family, I basically was the staff. But I didn't know that night would end with police lights outside the ballroom. And the people I called mom and dad getting dragged away in handcuffs? Not because of some small lie. Because of the biggest lie of my life. And it all started with one man staring at my face, like he'd seen a ghost, but I didn't know that yet. Not even close. Before I tell you everything, do me a quick favor. Comment where you're watching from and what time it is there right now. And if you've ever felt unwanted in your own home, comment the keyword, freedom. Hit subscribe too, because this story gets darker before it gets better, and trust me, you're going to want the ending. Now let me take you back to the beginning, back to the basement, back to the life I thought I deserved. But I didn't know. The basement wasn't the whole truth. My name is Brianna. I'm 23 years old, and for as long as I can remember, I lived like a secret. Not the kind of secret that feels exciting, the kind that feels like you're not fully human. I slept in a basement room with one tiny window near the ceiling. In winter, it was so cold my breath looked like smoke. In summer, it smelled like damp concrete. Upstairs, my brother Brandon had a king-size bed, a gaming setup, and a closet full of brand new clothes. He had trophies. He had photos on the walls. He had a life. I had chores. And the worst part is, I believed that was normal. But I didn't know. Normal families don't hide a child in the basement. People always ask me, why didn't you leave? Like leaving is easy when you've been trained your whole life to think you're nothing. When you've been told you exist to serve. When your world is only the walls of that house. My mother, Donna, used to say it like it was a lesson from a Bible. She'd tilt her head, smile like she was being kind, and say, some children are born to lead, some children are born to serve. And then she'd hand me a mop, but I didn't know. She wasn't teaching me life. She was teaching me control. Brandon was Donna's pride. My father, Kevin, called him my legacy. Brandon went to private school. Brandon got a BMW at 16. Brandon had an unlimited credit card that he used like it was air. Brandon could break a glass and they'd blame the floor for being too hard. I could breathe too loud and Donna would snap, stop making noise, Brianna. People will think we're running a zoo, so I learned to move quietly, speak softly, disappear. But I didn't know. The quieter I became, the easier it was to erase me. I didn't have a real childhood. I didn't have sleepovers or friends coming over. I didn't even have a birthday party. Donna said birthdays were for kids who earned celebration. The only gift I ever got was more responsibility. At 7, I cleaned bathrooms. At 9, I did laundry. At 12 I cooked dinner while Donna watched TV and Brandon played video games upstairs. At 14, I started doing everything. Cleaning, cooking, grocery lists, even ironing Kevin's shirts before his meetings. Donna would inspect my work like I was an employee. If there was dust on a shelf, she'd drag her finger across it and show me like proof of a crime. Are you stupid, Brianna? She'd say, or are you lazy? But I didn't know. She needed me to believe I was the problem. Kevin wasn't loud like Donna. He was worse. He was quiet. He would look at me like he was looking through me. Like I wasn't his daughter. Like I was a stray cat they never asked for. If I tried to speak, he cut me off with one sentence, don't start, or not now. Or my favorite, you should be grateful you're even here. And every time he said it my stomach would twist, because in my head I'd think he's right. I should be grateful, but I didn't know. Grateful is what abusers demand when they've stolen your choices. The only time I left the house was for errands. Donna would hand me a list and say, don't talk to people. Don't embarrass us. I'd walk through the grocery store staring at the floor, afraid of eye contact, afraid someone would ask me a question, afraid someone would see I didn't belong to myself. I didn't have a phone until I was 18, and even then, it was an old cracked one with a limited plan. Mostly so Donna could call and order me around. If I didn't answer on the first ring, she'd punish me. You think you're too important? She'd say. You think you're like Brandon? But I didn't know. They weren't raising me. They were managing me. When I was 16, I asked Donna if I could apply for a part-time job. My heart was pounding when I said it. Like asking for work was a crime. She laughed. A sharp little laugh that made my face burn. A job, she said. Who would hire you? Then she leaned closer and whispered, you don't need money, you need discipline. Kevin didn't even look up from his laptop. He just said, drop it. And that was the end of that dream. But I didn't know. They didn't want me independent. They wanted me trapped. The worst moments were family events. Because that's when I saw the truth. Not their truth. The real truth. When guests came over, Donna would change into her sweet voice. Kevin would become charming. Brandon would show off his smile and his stories. And I was told to stay in the basement until they needed food or drinks. Sometimes Donna would call down, Brianna, bring the tray. And I'd walk upstairs holding a plate like a server while people said, oh, you have help. Donna would laugh and say, oh, that's just Brianna. She's with us. With us. Not our daughter, not our family. Just with us. But I didn't know. Words like that are how people hide sins in plain sight. So I grew up believing one thing. Brandon was the main character, and I was the background. I believed my future was just more basement days. More cleaning. More silence. I didn't even let myself imagine love or freedom, because hope felt dangerous. But then Brandon got engaged, and everything in the house changed. And that's when the story truly begins. But I didn't know. Brandon's wedding wouldn't just change his life, it would destroy theirs. Her name was Serena, Brandon's fiancée. She was beautiful in that polished, rich way. Perfect hair, perfect nails, perfect teeth. The kind of woman who never carried her own bags. The first time I saw her, she walked into the house like she already owned it. Donna practically ran to hug her. Kevin shook her hand like she was a business deal. Brandon looked at her like she was a trophy. And Serena looked at me like I was a stain on the carpet. But I didn't know. Serena's family had power that my parents couldn't control. Serena's father was the real big name. His name was Victor Alden. Old money, private jets, charity boards. He didn't talk loud, but when he spoke, people listened. The first time he came over for dinner, Donna cleaned the house so hard you'd think the president was coming. She even told me to stay completely out of sight. Do you understand me? She hissed. Not a word. Not a step. Not a sound. So I stayed in the basement. I listened through the vents. I heard laughter. I heard expensive glasses clinking. I heard Donna calling Serena the daughter I always wished for, and my throat closed up like I swallowed a rock. But I didn't know. Victor Alden wasn't fooled by perfect acting. A week before the wedding, Donna finally called me upstairs while they were planning table cards. The living room was full of shiny wedding magazines and gold envelopes. Brandon sat on the couch with his feet up, scrolling like a king. Serena stood by the fireplace, pointing at a seating chart. Donna waved me over like I was a tool. Brianna, she said, you'll be helping at the wedding. My stomach dropped. Helping meant serving. It meant being invisible in a room full of people. I forced a nod. Yes, ma'am. Brandon laughed. Look at her, he said. Always ready to scrub something. Serena didn't laugh. She just said, make sure she doesn't embarrass us. And Donna nodded like that was a normal sentence. But I didn't know. The wedding would be the first time someone important really looked at me. On the day of the wedding, I was up before sunrise. Donna shoved a plain black dress into my arms. Wear this, she said. You'll look like staff. That's the point. Then she pinned my hair back so tight my scalp hurt. No makeup, no jewelry, nothing that could make me look like I belonged. She stared at my face like she was checking a mask. Keep your head down, she whispered. Smile if someone talks to you. Don't talk first. And if Victor Alden sees you, stay out of his way. That last part confused me. Why would I need to stay out of Serena's father's way? But I didn't know. Donna was scared for a reason. The wedding venue was huge. A mansion-style place with tall windows and gardens that looked like a movie set. Inside, there were flowers everywhere, white and gold. Soft lights, a harp playing, guests in tuxedos and gowns, people laughing, like nothing bad ever happens to rich people. I stood near the service hallway, holding a tray of champagne flutes. trying not to shake. I felt small. I felt out of place. I felt like a ghost. Then I heard Donna's voice behind me. Don't just stand there, Brianna, move. So I moved. I served. I smiled like a machine. But I didn't know. Someone was watching me too closely. It happened during the reception, right after the speeches started. Everyone was seated. Brandon was glowing, soaking up attention like sunlight. Donna was crying fake tears into a napkin. Kevin looked proud, like he personally invented success. Serena sat with a perfect smile, but her eyes looked bored. And Victor Alden stood up to give a toast. The whole room quieted. When he spoke, his voice was calm and smooth. To my daughter, he said. And to the man she chose. People clapped. Then his eyes drifted past the head table and landed on me. I was standing near the side wall by the servers, holding an empty tray, waiting for instructions. Victor Alden's face changed so fast, it scared me. His smile disappeared. His eyes narrowed like he was trying to focus. He stared at me, like I wasn't real, like I was a memory walking around. And then his hand actually shook on the microphone. He paused in the middle of his toast. The room stayed silent, confused. Serena leaned toward him and whispered, "Dad," but Victor didn't answer her. He kept staring at me, and I felt my skin go cold. Because I could feel it. Something had just shifted, but I didn't know. He wasn't just noticing me. He was recognizing me. Victor slowly lowered the microphone. He stepped down from the stage, like he forgot where he was. Serena's mouth opened, shocked. Brandon looked annoyed. Donna's face turned white like paper. Kevin stood up halfway, like he wanted to stop him. But Victor kept walking. Straight toward me. Past the tables, past the flowers, past the expensive laughter that had died in the air. I froze. I thought I was in trouble. I thought I had done something wrong just by existing. Victor stopped right in front of me. Up close, he smelled like clean cologne and money. His eyes scanned my face like he was searching for a detail he couldn't forget. Then he spoke in a low voice that only I could hear. "What is your name?" he asked. I swallowed. "Brianna," I said. His jaw tightened. "How old are you?" he asked. 23, I whispered. Victor's eyes filled with something I couldn't name. Pain, shock, fear. He leaned in closer and said, "Who are your parents?" Before I could answer, Donna's voice sliced through the air behind him. "Victor," she laughed too loud. "Please don't bother the help." Victor didn't even turn around. He kept looking at me, and then he said something that made my whole body go still. "You're not help," he whispered. "You have my sister's face." I blinked. "What?" I breathed. Victor's voice shook. "My sister Elise," he said. She lost a baby girl. 23 years ago. A kidnapping. They never found her." The room felt like it tilted. My ears rang. I stared at him like he was speaking another language. Donna made a choking sound behind him. Kevin grabbed her arm. Brandon stood up, angry. Serena's eyes were wide, confused. And Victor Alden looked like he was about to break apart in public. Then he said the sentence that changed my life. "I need you to come with me," he whispered. "Right now. And you're going to do a DNA test." My heart started pounding so hard it hurt, because I didn't understand what was happening. But I knew, deep inside, something huge was about to explode. And behind Victor, I saw Donna's face. Not sweet, not fake warm, terrified. And that's when I realized, Donna wasn't scared of being embarrassed. She was scared of being exposed. But I didn't know just how criminal the truth really was. Victor's words hit me like ice water. "You have my sister's face." For a second, I honestly thought I misheard him, because nothing in my life had ever sounded like hope, or truth, or a door opening. My whole body locked up. My hands were still holding that empty tray, like it was the only thing keeping me standing. Donna rushed forward with that fake smile glued on, but her eyes were wild. "Victor," she said too loudly. "This isn't the time. She's staff." Victor finally turned to her, slow, calm, dangerous calm. "She's not staff," he said. "And you know it." Kevin stepped in fast. He tried to laugh, like this was all a misunderstanding. "Victor, come on," he said. "You're emotional. Big day, wedding nerves. Let's not cause a scene." Victor stared at him like he was something stuck to his shoe. "My daughter's wedding is a big day," Victor replied. So yes, I'm going to be careful about who is lying in my presence. The room around us was still, too still, like the whole wedding was holding its breath. Serena stood up from the head table, confused, her perfect smile, finally cracking. Dad, she whispered, what are you doing? Brandon's face went red. He leaned towards Serena and snapped. Your dad is being weird. But Victor didn't look at Serena. He looked at me. Brianna, he said gently, come with me, right now. I didn't move. Because I couldn't. My brain was screaming, don't make Donna angry. Don't make Kevin angry. Don't cause trouble, stay small. Donna stepped closer to me, her nails digging into my arm like a warning. You will not go anywhere, she hissed through her teeth. Do you hear me? And that's when Victor's expression changed again. His eyes went colder. He looked at Donna's hand gripping my arm. Then he looked at her face. Take your hand off her, he said. Donna laughed, fake and sharp. Oh, I'm just guiding her. Now, Victor said. Quiet. Firm. Donna's hand slid away, like she'd been burned, and my heart started racing, because I realized something terrifying. This man wasn't asking, he was taking control. And Donna couldn't stop him, but I still didn't know why my parents looked like they'd just been caught doing something illegal. Victor motioned toward a side door near the stage, a private hallway I didn't even know existed. Two men in dark suits appeared. Security, not the venue's security, Victor's. Victor didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Please clear this area, he told them. Kevin stepped forward, trying to block us. Victor, don't do this, he said, voice tight. We can talk later. Not in front of everyone. Victor leaned in a little, just enough to make Kevin flinch. No, Victor said. We talk now. Then Victor looked at me again, softer. You're safe, he said. Just walk with me. Safe. No one had ever used that word about me, so I followed him. My legs felt numb as I walked down that private hallway, away from the ballroom, away from the flowers and music, away from Donna's control. The security men stayed behind us, like walls, like protection. Donna and Kevin followed too. Of course. Donna kept talking fast, like she could talk her way out of anything. Victor, you're confused. She said, she's been with us forever. She's a foster situation, a family charity thing. Victor stopped walking, turned around. A foster situation, he repeated. Donna's mouth opened, then closed. Kevin tried a different angle. He smiled. He used his business voice. Victor, he said, this is an emotional topic. Your sister's tragedy. It was awful, but Brianna isn't. Victor stepped closer, eyes narrowed. Tell me something, Victor said. Do you have photos of her as a baby? Donna froze. Kevin blinked too hard. Because the truth was, I had never seen a single baby picture of myself. Not one. No birthday photos, no school photos on the wall, nothing. Victor looked at me. Do you remember being a little kid? He asked. I swallowed. Not really, I admitted. Just bits. Like cold floors. Like a basement smell. Like Donna's voice. Like being told to be quiet. Victor's jaw tightened. He opened a door into a small office suite. Soft carpet, leather chairs, a private bathroom, a minibar. The kind of room rich people use when they need to hide real conversations behind fancy events. He pointed for me to sit. I sat on the edge of the chair like I didn't deserve the full seat. Victor sat across from me. Donna and Kevin stood near the door, trapped between Victor's security and their own fear. Victor pulled out his phone and tapped fast. Then he looked at me again. Brianna, he said, I'm going to ask you something very direct. Do you know you were kidnapped? My stomach dropped so hard I thought I might throw up. What? I whispered. Donna gasped, loud, fake. Victor, she cried. How dare you say that? This is insane. Kevin's face was sweating now. Victor didn't blink. I didn't say she was kidnapped, Victor said calmly. I asked if she knows. Then he leaned forward. My sister Elise had a baby girl, he continued, voice low. That baby was taken, gone 23 years ago. I shook my head, barely breathing. But I'm not, I don't. Victor lifted his hand, gentle. I know this is a lot. Then he said something that made my skin prickle. Elise had a small mark behind her left ear. He said, a birthmark. Like a little crescent. My heart stopped. Because I had that, Donna's eyes flashed to my ears so fast, it was like a reflex. Victor noticed. Brianna, he said, could you move your hair? My fingers shook as I reached up. I moved my hair off my ear. Victor stared. Kevin's mouth went slightly open. Donna whispered, no. Victor swallowed hard. His eyes got shiny. Oh my God, he breathed. Then his voice cracked, just for a second. That's it, he said. That's the mark. The room felt like it was spinning. My hands went cold. I had lived 23 years being treated like nothing. And now a stranger was looking at me like I was someone precious. But I didn't know what that meant for the people standing behind me. Victor stood up fast, like he couldn't sit anymore. He turned to Donna and Kevin. We're doing a DNA test, he said, tonight. Donna laughed too loud. No, she snapped. Absolutely not. Victor's security stepped slightly forward. Not touching. Just reminding. Victor's voice stayed calm, but every word hit like a hammer. Yes, Victor said. And if you try to stop it, I will assume you have something to hide. Kevin held up both hands. Victor, please, he said. This is complicated. Let's talk privately, man to man. Victor tilted his head. This is private, he said. We are in a private room, and you are still lying. Then Victor's phone buzzed. He answered immediately. Thomas? Victor said into the phone. I need a DNA kit delivered to Fairfield Garden Estates. Now. And I need a lab that can run it fast. Tonight. He paused, listening. Also, he added, eyes locked on Donna and Kevin. I need Detective Alvarez on standby. Tell him it's about the Elise Alden case. Donna's knees looked like they almost buckled. Detective. Case. Elise Alden. Donna and Kevin weren't just scared anymore. They looked hunted, and I realized something that made my throat tighten. They weren't afraid of losing me. They were afraid of getting caught. But I still didn't know. If Victor was right, then my whole life was a crime. A sharp knock hit the door. Victor's security opened it. A man stepped in with a small black case, like a briefcase. Clean, professional. Victor took it and set it on the table. Brianna, he said softly, I'm sorry. I know this is overwhelming, but I need to know the truth. I looked at Donna. Her face was blank now. Her eyes were hard. No fake warmth. No, just control. Don't do it, she said flatly. If you do this, you'll regret it. Kevin nodded like he was trying to scare me back into the basement. You want a family, he said. Then behave like it. I stared at them, and for the first time in my life, something inside me snapped into focus. Family doesn't threaten you. The family doesn't hide you. Family doesn't keep you in a basement. I turned back to Victor. I'll do it, I whispered. Victor nodded once, like he respected me. The man opened the kit, swabs, gloves, Victor watched, almost shaking, as the man swabbed my cheek, then his own. Then, Serena's father did something I never expected. He didn't leave me alone with Donna and Kevin. He told security, stay with her. And Donna's eyes flared with rage because she couldn't get to me anymore. But I didn't know that the real danger wasn't Donna's anger. It was what they were going to do once they realized they were running out of time. We walked back into the ballroom like nothing happened. But everything had changed. The music started again. People tried to laugh again. Serena looked pale and confused. Brandon looked furious. Donna leaned toward Brandon and whispered something fast. Brandon's eyes snapped to me. His face twisted. He stormed toward me near the service hallway. You ruined my wedding, he hissed. I didn't do anything, I said, voice shaking. Brandon stepped closer. Too close. You always do something, he spat. You exist. That's the problem. Then he lowered his voice into something ugly. If this DNA thing is real, he whispered, you're dead to us. I stared at him. Us? He said us like I had ever been included. Then he smiled coldly and said, actually, maybe we should make sure you never get the results. My blood turned to ice. Because that didn't sound like a threat from a brother. That sounded like a threat from someone protecting a secret. And I suddenly understood something terrifying. If Victor was right, then the people I lived with were not just cruel. They were dangerous, but I didn't know how far they would go to keep me quiet. That night, Victor didn't let me go back to Donna and Kevin's house. He put me in a hotel, a real hotel, soft bed, warm lights, Clean sheets, a room that didn't smell like mildew or bleach. I stood in the bathroom and stared at myself in the mirror for a long time. Same face, same tired eyes, same mouth that never spoke. But now, I looked different to myself. Like maybe I wasn't born to serve. Maybe I was stolen. My phone buzzed. A message from a number I didn't know. It was Victor. I'm sorry for what you're going through. The lab will call me within 48 hours. Until then, you stay protected. Do not answer calls from Donna, Kevin, or Brandon. I read it twice. Protected. I sat on the bed, hugging a pillow, and suddenly I started shaking. Not because I was scared, because I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. And then my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a voicemail from Donna. Her voice was sweet. Too sweet. Brianna, she said softly, come home. We need to talk. This isn't safe for you. You don't understand what you started. I deleted it, and then my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. A text. You think you're special now. You're still nothing. Come home before you regret it. My throat went dry. Because I knew who that was. Brandon. Then another text came right after it. And this one made my heart stop. We can make this all disappear. I stared at the screen. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped the phone. Disappear. That's what they had done to me my whole life. But now they were saying it like a plan. And I realized they weren't just trying to control me anymore. They were trying to erase evidence. And the scariest part, I still didn't even know my real name. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Donna's face. Not the fake smiling one, the real one. Cold, hard, like she was already planning what to do to me. And Brandon's message kept flashing in my head. We can make this all disappear. I sat up in that hotel bed, staring at the door like it might open by itself. I kept telling myself, I'm safe. Victor has security. But deep down, I knew something. People don't talk like that unless they've done it before, and I didn't know yet that the next morning would prove it. I woke up to a knock. 3 quick taps. Then a man's voice through the door. Miss Brianna, security, please don't open the door. Just speak. My heart jumped into my throat. I swallowed. Yes. It's okay, he said. Mr. Hale asked us to check in. Someone tried to access your floor last night. My stomach dropped. Tried? I whispered. He paused. A woman? Blonde? She said she was your Donna. Of course. She told the front desk you were unstable, the guard continued. That you ran away. That she needed to bring you home for your safety. I closed my eyes. So, that's what they were doing. Same plan as always. Make me look crazy. Make me look like a problem. Make the world hand me back to them. But I didn't know. It was about to get worse than a lie. The guard lowered his voice. She wasn't alone. My skin went cold. Who? I asked. A man, he said. Tall, expensive suit. He didn't talk much. Just watched. Like he was waiting for you to come out. Brandon. I gripped the blanket so hard, my hands hurt. They left when we refused, the guard said. But we wanted you to know. And Mr. Hale said, you are not to leave the room unless we escort you. I forced myself to breathe. Thank you, I whispered. When he left, I sat there shaking. Because this wasn't a normal family argument anymore. This was a hunt. And I was the thing they wanted back. Or worse, the thing they wanted silenced. Then my phone buzzed. A call from Victor. I answered fast. Hello. His voice was calm, but tight. Brianna, he said. Listen carefully. My investigator found something. My heart pounded. What? Donna, he said, that's not her name. I went still. Victor continued, slow and clear. Her real name is Donna Marsh. She was arrested years ago for fraud. Identity changes, false paperwork, small stuff that never stuck long enough to keep her locked up. I felt sick. Fraud. Fake names. Fake paperwork. That explained everything I never questioned. No baby photos. No records. No real childhood. Victor exhaled. But here's the part that matters, he said. She lived in New Jersey 23 years ago. 2 towns from where my sister's baby was taken. My throat went dry. I couldn't even speak. Victor's voice dropped. And Kevin? His real name is Kevin Marsh. Not Evans. Not my father, Marsh. Same as Donna. So they weren't even pretending to be married because of love. They were a team, a unit, a plan. Victor said they were investigated once, back then, just briefly. But the case went cold. I whispered, so. They did it. I don't know that yet, Victor said. But I know this. They weren't supposed to have you. I pressed my palm to my chest like I could hold my heart in place. Victor, I said, why would they keep me? There was a pause. Then Victor said something that made my stomach twist. Because keeping you hidden was safer than letting you be found. And suddenly, my whole life made horrible sense. The basement wasn't an accident. The isolation wasn't a mistake. The cruelty wasn't random. It was control. It was prevention. It was a cage. But I still didn't know what they were preventing me from remembering. Victor told me to stay inside until his driver arrived. An hour later, I was in the back of a black SUV, escorted by 2 security men, heading to Victor's private office. I kept looking out the window like Donna's car would appear behind us, like Brandon would pull up beside us, like someone would grab me back into the dark. When we arrived, Victor met me at the door. And when he saw my face, his expression softened in a way that broke me. Not pity, not judgment, just care. He guided me into his office, shut the door, and said quietly, "You're doing great." I nodded, but my eyes burned. I wasn't used to anyone saying kind things to me without wanting something. Victor sat across from me, hands clasped. Then he slid a folder across the desk. Inside were printed photos. My stomach clenched before I even looked. Victor said, "This is Elise." I looked down, a woman with warm eyes, dark hair, a smile that looked like sunlight. And my breath caught, because it was like looking at myself. If my life had been gentle, Victor slid another photo forward. Elise holding a baby with a tiny crescent birthmark behind her left ear. I started shaking. "That's me," I whispered. Victor's eyes filled. "Yes," he said, "I believe it is." Then he leaned forward. "Brianna," he said softly, "if the DNA confirms this, your real name isn't Brianna." My stomach flipped. "What is it?" I asked, barely able to breathe. Victor swallowed. Elise named her daughter Grace. Grace. The word felt strange in my mouth. Grace. Not basement girl. Not servant. Not the one born to serve. Grace. Then Victor's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and his face changed. He stood up fast. "It's Detective Alvarez," he said. My heart slammed. Victor answered and put it on speaker. A man's voice filled the room. "Firm. Official. Mr. Hale," the detective said. "We have enough for a warrant request if your DNA comes back positive. But I need to ask, has Donna Marsh contacted the girl?" Victor looked at me. "Yes, she tried to reach her last night." The detective's tone sharpened. "Then it's urgent," he said. "These people run when they feel cornered." Run. My stomach dropped. Victor asked, "How fast can you move?" The detective replied, "The minute the lab confirms. Until then, keep her protected." Victor ended the call. Then he looked at me, and his voice turned serious. "Brianna," he said, "if this is real, they may try to take you before the results come back." My mouth went dry. "I'm already not with them," I whispered. Victor's eyes stayed on mine. "That doesn't mean they won't try," he said. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. I wasn't just waiting for DNA results. I was waiting for an attack. But I didn't know it was going to happen sooner than anyone expected. That afternoon, Victor told me I'd stay at a safe house. Private, quiet, staffed, guard. I kept thinking, this is insane. This is not my life. But then my phone buzzed again. A message from Linda's number. Only it wasn't sweet this time. It was pure poison. "You think a rich man will save you. He won't. You belong to us." My fingers went numb. Then another message came right after. "We made you. We can erase you." I stared at the screen. My vision blurred. And for the first time, I didn't feel sad. I felt angry. Because they weren't even pretending anymore. They didn't love me. They didn't raise me. They owned me, or they thought they did. Victor's head of security took my phone, copied everything, and said, "Good. Let them text its evidence." Evidence. That word felt powerful. because for the first time in my life, my pain wasn't being ignored. It was being recorded. Then, the doorbell rang at the safe house. Not a normal doorbell. A hard buzz. The head of security checked the cameras. His face tightened. "Mr. Hale," he called out, "we have a problem." Victor walked over, looked at the screen, and my blood turned to ice. Because standing outside the gate was Brandon. And with him, Donna and Kevin. All three of them, right there, like they tracked me, like they didn't care who saw, like they were done playing nice. Donna was smiling at the camera, and she lifted her hand and waved. Victor's security reached for their radios, and Victor's voice went cold. "Call the police," he said. Then he looked at me. "You stay inside," he ordered. "Do not go near a window." I couldn't move, couldn't speak. All I could hear was my heart slamming. And then, through the intercom, Donna's voice came in, loud and sugary. "Sweetheart," she called, "come out. We just want to talk." Kevin's voice followed, lower. "This doesn't have to get ugly." Then Brandon stepped close to the camera. His eyes were dead. And he said, clearly, like he wanted me to hear it, "Grace, come home." Grace. He used the name. How did he know? My whole body went cold. Because if they knew that name, then they knew the truth. And if they knew the truth, then they knew exactly what they were losing. And people do desperate things when they're about to lose everything. Before I jump back in, tell me where you're watching from and what time it is there. And if you're still here with me, comment the word Grace and hit subscribe. Because what happened next? I still can't believe it happened to me. Okay. So there I was, inside Victor's safe house, shaking so hard, my teeth felt loose. Outside the gate, Donna was waving like she was greeting a neighbor. Like she didn't just threaten to erase me. And Brandon? Brandon looked into the camera and said, "My real name? Grace. Come home." I stared at Victor. "How does he know that name?" I whispered. Victor didn't answer. His jaw tightened. He just said, "Police are on the way. Stay back." The head of security pressed buttons on the intercom. "Ma'am," he said, calm and firm, "you need to leave the property." Donna laughed, sweet and fake. "We're her parents. She's having an episode. She ran away." Kevin stepped forward, and his voice dropped low. "Open the gate." The security man didn't move. Brandon leaned toward the intercom like he owned the place. "You don't understand," he said. "This is family. She belongs with us." That word hit me like a slap. Belongs. Not she's loved. Not she's safe. Just belongs. Then I heard it. A siren. Not one, two, then three. Blue and red lights flashed across the windows. And Donna's smile? Just for a second. But I saw it. Fear. Because bullies act brave until real power shows up. The police cars stopped outside the gate. 2 officers stepped out first, hands near their belts. Then another car pulled up, and a man in a plain jacket got out. "Detective Alvarez." Victor walked to the front hallway and spoke through the intercom again. "Detective Alvarez is here," he said. Donna's voice instantly changed. "Oh, thank goodness," she cried, loud enough to perform for anyone watching. "Officer, I'm so glad you're here. My daughter is inside. She's confused and she's being manipulated." The officers looked between Donna and the gate. Alvarez raised a hand. "Ma'am," he said calm. "What's your name?" Donna smiled big. "Donna Evans," she said, like it was the most normal thing in the world. Alvarez didn't even blink. He just said, "That's not your name." Donna froze, like her whole body forgot how to act. Kevin stepped in fast. "Excuse me," he snapped. "You can just..." Alvarez held up a paper. "Donna Marsh," he said, clear as day. "Also known as Donna Evans. Also known as 2 other names. You have a history of fraud and identity issues." Donna's face went pale. Then she snapped back into her mask. "That's ridiculous," she said, laughing like it was a joke. "This is a misunderstanding." Alvarez nodded slowly. "Maybe," he said. "So let's clear it up." He turned to Brandon. "And you," he said, "what's your name?" Brandon lifted his chin. "Brandon Evans." Alvarez looked at him like he was a bug under glass. "No," he said, "your legal name is Brandon Marsh." The air changed. Like the temperature dropped 10 degrees. Brandon's eyes flicked to Donna. And in that 1 second, I saw it. He wasn't shocked. He was scared. because he knew the truth. He just never expected to hear it from a detective. Then Alvarez spoke again. Why are you here? He asked. Donna threw her hands up. To get my daughter. She cried. She's mentally unstable. She's always been difficult. She's sick. She needs help. I swallowed hard. Same story. Same poison. Same plan. Make me look crazy so nobody listens. Victor stepped forward into the camera view and spoke through the intercom. That woman is not her mother, he said. And she tried to force contact last night. Alvarez nodded once. Then he looked at the officers. Do we have consent from the property owner? He asked. Victor said yes. Alvarez turned back to Donna. Then you need to leave, he said. Right now. Kevin took one step toward the gate. No, he said. You don't get it. That girl is ours. Alvarez's eyes sharpened. Say that again, he said slow. Kevin realized what he'd said and tried to fix it. I mean, she's our daughter. But the damage was done because he didn't say it like a dad. He said it like a man talking about property. Then Brandon did something that made my stomach flip. He walked to the police car. He leaned in close. And he whispered something to one of the officers. I couldn't hear it. But I saw the officer's face change. The officer looked at Alvarez and said something back. Quiet. Alvarez's expression went hard. Then he turned to Donna and Kevin. Open your trunk, he said. Donna blinked fast. What? Why? Alvarez didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Open it, he repeated. Kevin scoffed. You need a warrant? Alvarez nodded. Then we'll wait right here while I call for one. Donna swallowed. She looked around like she was calculating exits. Then she forced a smile again. Fine, she said. Fine, we have nothing to hide. Kevin clicked the key fob. The trunk popped open. One officer walked over. He lifted the lid fully. And then he stopped. He didn't move for a second. Just stared. Then he slowly reached inside and pulled out a black duffel bag. My heart pounded so hard I felt dizzy. Alvarez stepped closer. What is that? He asked. The officer unzipped the bag. And I swear, the whole world went silent in my ears. Inside were fake IDs. Not one. A stack. Different names. Different states. Different faces. Then another officer reached in and pulled out a small lockbox. He opened it. And there were birth certificates. Blank ones. And next to them, a folded newspaper clipping. Old. Yellow, with worn out. Alvarez took it and unfolded it carefully. He read the headline. Then his eyes flicked up, straight to Donna. His voice went low. This is a kidnapping case from 23 years ago, he said. Donna's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Brandon's face looked like he'd been punched. Kevin suddenly stepped back, like he wanted to run. And then, the officer reached deeper into the trunk and pulled out one more thing. A tiny baby bracelet. Old. Hospital style. The name printed on it was faded, but still readable. And when Alvarez read it, he looked like he just found a ghost. He turned toward Victor's camera and said one sentence that made my knees go weak. Her name was Grace Hale. My vision blurred, because that wasn't just a name anymore. That was proof. And Donna started shaking her head fast. No, she whispered, no, no, no. But it was too late. The officers moved in. Kevin tried to step away. An officer grabbed his arm. Brandon shouted, wait, you don't understand. And Donna screamed, loud and desperate, like a cornered animal. She's ours. She was supposed to stay ours. The handcuffs clicked. Metal on skin. And when I heard that sound, something inside me finally cracked open. Not sadness, not fear, relief. Because for the first time in my life, someone believed me without me begging. But I didn't know that the next thing Detective Alvarez would say would change my entire identity in one sentence. He looked up at the camera again and said, bring the girl outside. We need to confirm the birthmark. And my stomach dropped because I had that birthmark behind my left ear. The one Donna always told me to hide with my hair. The one she acted weird about every time she saw it. Now I knew why. If you're still with me, hit subscribe too. Because this part is the moment my whole life split in two. So Detective Alvarez said, bring the girl outside. We need to confirm the birthmark. My legs went weak because I knew exactly what he meant. Behind my left ear, I've always had this small mark, like a soft little crescent. Donna used to yank my hair down over it like it was a crime. Cover that, she'd hiss. As a kid, I thought it was just ugly. Now I knew it was dangerous. Victor turned to me, eyes wide. Do you have it? He asked, like he was afraid to breathe. I swallowed and nodded. Alvarez looked up at the front door camera. Ma'am, he said, speaking to Victor's security. Open the door. Keep her in view. The locks clicked. The door opened. Cold night air hit my face. And for the first time in my life, stepping outside felt like stepping into truth. Donna saw me instantly. Her eyes locked on my head. Not my face. Not my tears. My ear. Like she was hunting for a label on stolen property. She took one step forward and screamed, Don't touch her. An officer held her back. Kevin shouted, This is insane. She's our daughter. And Brandon wasn't shouting anymore. He was staring at me like I was a ghost. Like he'd been living in a lie. And now the lie was standing right in front of him. Detective Alvarez walked up slowly. Mom, he said to me, gentle for the first time, I'm going to check behind your ear. Is that okay? I nodded. My hands were shaking so bad, I had to press them against my thighs. Alvarez lifted my hair carefully. The streetlight hit my skin, and I heard Victor suck in a sharp breath. Like the air got punched out of him, Alvarez leaned closer. Then he looked at Victor and said quietly, It's there. Victor's face changed in 1 second. His eyes filled up. His mouth opened, but nothing came out. He just whispered, Oh my God. And I stood there frozen, because I didn't know if I should cry, or run, or collapse. Donna started screaming again. No, that means nothing. Lots of people have marks. Alvarez didn't even look at her. He turned to the officers. Separate them, he said now. 2 officers moved Donna and Kevin back toward their car. Kevin tried to jerk away. 1 officer pinned his wrists behind him. Donna started crying, loud and dramatic. She's sick. She's confused. She's been brainwashed. I looked at her and felt something cold settle inside me. Because she wasn't crying for me. She was crying because she got caught. Then Alvarez looked at me again. Do you know your date of birth? He asked. I said it automatically. April 17th. Donna flinched. Just one tiny twitch. But I saw it. Alvarez nodded slowly. That's the date on the missing child report, he said. My stomach dropped. Victor took 1 step closer, voice shaking. My sister, he whispered. She had her baby in April. Then he looked right at me and his eyes were begging. Not demanding. Not judging. Begging? Do you remember anything? He asked softly. I laughed, but it came out broken. I was a baby, I said. All I remember is a basement. And when I said that word, Victor's jaw clenched so tight I thought it would crack. Because he didn't just suspect anymore. He knew, but I didn't know the worst part yet. Because that's when Alvarez said, We're taking her to the station for a formal statement and a DNA swab. Donna's whole body snapped. No, she screamed. She's mine. And then Kevin did something that made everyone move at once. He bolted. Straight up. Like he thought he could outrun 20 years of crime. An officer tackled him. Before he made it 3 steps, Brandon shouted, Dad! And in that one word, I realized something sick. He called Kevin Dad. So either he really believed the lie, or he was part of it. Alvarez looked at Brandon. Step back, he said. Brandon lifted his hands, shaking. I didn't do anything, he said fast. I swear I didn't kidnap anyone. Alvarez stared at him. Then he said, That depends on what you knew. And Brandon went silent. Because there it was. That pause people do when they're thinking, how much can I admit without ruining myself? Then Alvarez turned to me. Ma'am, he said, you're not under arrest. You're under protection. Protection. No one had ever said that word to me in my life. I got into the back of the police car. Not handcuffs. Just a blanket around my shoulders. Victor stood outside the window, hands shaking. I'm coming, he said quickly. I'm right behind you. I nodded, because I didn't know what else to do. And as we pulled away, I saw Donna screaming at the officers. I saw Kevin's face twisted with hate. And I saw Brandon standing still, staring into the road, like the ground had disappeared under him. At the station, they sat me in a small room. Plain walls. Bright light. A little camera in the corner. A social worker brought me water and said, "You're safe." I almost cried right there. Then Detective Alvarez came in with a small kit. He said, "This is a cheek swab. It doesn't hurt." I nodded. He took the sample, sealed it and said, "We're sending it to the lab tonight. Rush." My heart started pounding again, because suddenly, it was real. Like, not maybe, not what if, real. Then Victor walked in. And when I saw him in that room, his eyes red, his hands trembling, I knew he wasn't acting. This was pain that lived in him. For decades. He sat down across from me slowly. And he whispered, "My sister's name was Elise." I swallowed. He kept going. "She was kind, quiet, like you." My chest tightened. He pulled out a photo from his wallet. Old, soft at the edges. A woman smiling, holding a baby wrapped in a blanket. Victor slid it toward me. "I don't expect you to remember," he said. "But that baby was taken from her in a parking lot 23 years ago." I stared at the photo, and my whole body started to shake, because the baby's bracelet in the photo had the same faded style as the one Alvarez found in Donna's trunk. Victor's voice broke. "She never recovered," he whispered. "She passed away 5 years later. But she died believing her daughter was alive somewhere." He looked up at me, and his eyes were begging again. "Please," he whispered, "tell me I'm not crazy." I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. Because what do you say when your whole childhood was built on a lie? Then Alvarez stepped back in and said, "We found something else." He dropped a folder on the table, and the first page made me feel sick. It was a copy of a hospital discharge paper from 23 years ago. And on the bottom, a signature, Donna Marsh, not Evans, Marsh. Victor stared at it and went pale. "She worked at the hospital," he said, like the words tasted like poison. Alvarez nodded. "She was on staff the week the baby went missing." I felt my stomach flip. Because it wasn't just kidnapping. It was planned. It was inside. It was a setup. And then Alvarez said, the sentence that made the room spin, "We're also looking into Brandon's birth records. Because there's a chance he isn't who he thinks he is, either." Victor blinked hard. "What do you mean?" he asked. Alvarez's voice stayed calm. "We mean there may have been more than one stolen child." My whole body went cold. Because if that was true, then my brother wasn't just spoiled. He was part of something darker. And I didn't know if he was a victim or a monster. Then the phone on Alvarez's belt buzzed. He looked at the screen, and his face changed. He answered and said only 2 words. "Is it in?" He listened. Then he looked straight at me, and he said, "The DNA results are coming in sooner than expected." My breath caught, because in the next few minutes, I was either going to stay Brianna or become Grace Hale for real. And I wasn't ready for what that meant. Not even close. Detective Alvarez came back in with his phone still in his hand. His face was serious, but his eyes looked almost soft. He said the lab rushed it. Victor stood up so fast his chair scraped the floor. "What does it say?" he asked. Alvarez didn't answer right away. He walked to the table, placed a single sheet down, and turned it so I could see it too. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely hold the paper. Then I saw the words that changed my life. "Match confirmed." Alvarez said, "You are a direct maternal match to Elise Hale's family line. And you are a close biological match to Victor Hale." Victor's mouth opened, but no sound came out. His eyes filled, and his whole face crumpled like a man who had been holding his breath for 23 years. And just finally exhaled. He whispered, "Grace." I blinked. "Grace?" He nodded, voice breaking. "That was her name. My sister named her Grace." My chest tightened so hard, I felt like I couldn't breathe. All my life, I had been called Brianna like it was my chain. Now a stranger was looking at me like I was something precious. Victor stepped closer, slowly, like he didn't want to scare me. He said, "I'm not asking you to call me uncle. I'm not asking you to trust me overnight. But I'm telling you, you're not alone anymore." And that's when I started crying. Not cute crying. Not quiet crying. The kind of crying that feels like your whole body is finally letting go. Because suddenly, It wasn't just I'm treated like a servant. I was stolen. I wiped my face fast, embarrassed. But Victor didn't look away. He just whispered, I'm so sorry. Detective Alvarez cleared his throat and stood up straighter. Now that we have confirmation, he said, we move. He nodded to another officer outside the room. And within minutes, everything turned into motion. Doors opening, radios cracking, footsteps moving fast down the hallway. Then Alvarez looked at me and said, Brianna, I need you to understand something. He paused. Then he said, the people you lived with. They're being charged. I swallowed. For what? His voice was calm but sharp. Kidnapping? Fraud? Forgery of birth records? Child abuse? Forced labor? And obstruction? Forced labor. Hearing those words made my stomach turn, because it meant the law could finally say what my heart had always known. I wasn't ungrateful. I wasn't dramatic. I was trapped. Victor's jaw clenched. He said, where are they now? Alvarez replied, holding. Then he looked at me again. Do you want to see them? He asked. Not to confront, just to identify? My throat went dry. Part of me wanted to say no. Part of me wanted to run. But another part of me, a stronger part, wanted to look them in the eyes while the truth stood between us. So I nodded, and when I stood up, my knees almost buckled. The social worker put a hand on my shoulder. You're doing great, she whispered. Nobody had ever said that to me either. They walked me down a hallway, past bright lights and cold floors, to a small room with a big one-way window. Donna and Kevin were inside, sitting at a metal table. Donna's makeup was smeared. Her hair was messy. Her eyes were wild. Kevin looked empty, like a man whose lies finally collapsed. The moment Donna saw me through the glass, she slammed her hands on the table and screamed, Look what you did! I flinched. Not because I believed her, because my body still remembered fear. She pointed at me like I was the criminal. You always wanted to destroy us, she yelled. You always hated us. Victor stepped beside me, quiet but dangerous. He said, You're going to prison. Donna laughed like a witch. You think you can just take her? She snapped. You think blood matters? I raised her. I couldn't stop myself. I leaned forward and whispered, You didn't raise me. Donna's eyes widened. I kept going, voice shaking but clear. You used me. Kevin finally spoke, low and rough. Brianna, he said, like he was trying to sound like a father. I looked at him and felt nothing. Not love. Not hate. Just tired. I said, My name isn't Brianna. Kevin blinked. Donna's face twitched. Victor said softly, Her name is Grace. Donna's mouth opened, and for a second, just 1 second, she looked scared. Then she snapped back into anger. She's lying, she screamed. That test is fake. Alvarez didn't even blink. He turned and walked out. And when he came back in, he wasn't alone. 2 officers stepped in with handcuffs. The click of metal was loud in that tiny room. Kevin stood up fast. Wait. Donna started crying instantly, dramatic and loud, like a performance. No. Please, I'm her mother. One officer said, Turn around. Donna jerked away. Another officer grabbed her arms. She screamed, Grace, tell them you love me. My stomach turned, because even now, she was still trying to make me her shield. Kevin looked at me one last time. His eyes weren't sad. They were angry, like I stole something from him. But I didn't steal anything. I just stopped being quiet. They walked them out, and the moment the door shut, the room felt lighter, like the air finally belonged to me. But it wasn't over, because Alvarez walked back in and said, We have another situation. Victor frowned. What now? Alvarez hesitated. Then he said, We contacted the hospital where Elise gave birth. We pulled old staff lists, record storage. My heart started beating fast again. Alvarez continued. Donna Marsh worked there. Victor's face went tight. Marsh? Alvarez nodded. Before she became Evans. Then he dropped another folder on the table. And the top page was a copy of a security log. A parking lot camera record. The date was 23 years ago. And next to the entry, in Donna's handwriting, was one sentence. Baby moved. No witnesses. I felt cold all over. Victor whispered, She wrote that. Alvarez nodded. Yes. Then he said something that made my blood turn to ice. We also found a second file in storage. Victor's voice went hard. Second file. For what? Alvarez looked straight at me. Then he looked at Victor. Then he said, another missing baby report. From the same month, same hospital. Victor blinked. Elise only had one baby. Alvarez opened the folder and slid the paper out. A photocopy of an old newspaper clipping. Headline: Newborn son missing from hospital, family begs for answers. My lips parted. A son? Alvarez nodded. And there's more, he said quietly. He flipped to the last page. A list of names. And one name was circled in red. Brandon Evans. My heart dropped straight into my stomach. Victor said, why is his name on that? Alvarez answered slowly. Because that missing baby boy's last name was Evans. The room went dead silent. I stared at the paper until my eyes burned. Then I whispered, that's my brother. Victor's jaw clenched. He said, that's my daughter's husband. And in that moment, everything felt wrong. Like the wedding wasn't a celebration anymore. It was a trap. Alvarez said, we don't have proof yet, but we're not ignoring the pattern. Then he looked at Victor and said, we may need Brandon's DNA too. Victor's face went pale. He whispered, if Brandon is connected to this. Then he stopped talking. Because he couldn't finish the sentence. Because the sentence would be too ugly to say out loud. And that's when my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. 2 words. What did you do? Then another text came. You ruined everything. And then the last one made my stomach twist into knots. Don't come back here, ever. I didn't need a name to know who sent it. Brandon, my brother, the golden child, the prince. He knew something. And I didn't know if he was scared because he loved them, or scared because he was part of it. I looked at Alvarez. I whispered, he's going to run, isn't he? Alvarez didn't answer right away. He just said, we're moving fast. Victor looked at me, eyes heavy. He said, Grace. If he's not who he thinks he is. I swallowed hard. Neither was I whispered. And that's where I'm gonna pause. Because the next part is when Brandon shows up at the station. And the truth about him starts cracking open in front of everyone. If you want part 7, comment, run. Because next, he walks into that station like he owns the world. And walks out realizing he might not even know his own name. Run. Here's a final stretch of the story. The part where everything falls apart. And then finally, comes back together. The DNA results came in on a plain white email, no drama in the subject line. Just a file, a number, and one sentence that made my stomach drop. Probability of relationship, 99.99%. I stared at it like it was written in another language. My hands went cold. My mouth went dry. I read it again, then again, and suddenly my whole life didn't feel real anymore. Because that one line didn't just mean family match. It meant someone stole me. And the people I called mom and dad weren't my parents at all. But I didn't even have time to breathe. Because the wedding was still going on behind those ballroom doors. And I was about to walk back in carrying a truth that would explode everything. And I didn't know. They were already watching me. I walked into the hallway where Mr. Harland, the bride's father, was waiting. He didn't look angry. He didn't look confused. He looked haunted, like he was looking at a ghost that came back to punish him. He held the paper with both hands, like it could burn him. He said, Brianna, I need you to sit down. I said, just tell me, please. His throat moved like he swallowed pain. Then he said it. You're not their daughter. The world tilted. I grabbed the wall. I felt my knees go weak. He leaned closer and whispered, you're my sister's child. I blinked hard. Your sister is dead? He nodded once. His eyes turned red. My sister was kidnapped 23 years ago. Her baby was taken too. My heart started beating so loud, I could hear it in my ears. I said, so you think I'm that baby? He didn't answer with words. He just held up the DNA paper again. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. This wasn't a theory anymore. This was proof. And I didn't know. My mother was already coming down the hallway. I heard heels clicking fast, angry, sharp. Then her voice cut through the air like a knife. Brianna, what are you doing back here? I turned, and there she was, Linda, the woman who made me sleep in the basement, the woman who called me the help, the woman who smiled at guests like she was kind. Her face was tight, her eyes were wide. She saw the paper in Mr. Harlan's hand, and for the first time in my life, I watched her lose control. She snapped, "What is that?" Mr. Harlan didn't flinch. He just said calmly, "A DNA test." Linda's mouth opened, like she wanted to laugh it off. "A what? That's ridiculous." But her hands were shaking. I saw it, and that's when I knew. She wasn't surprised. She was scared, and I didn't know. My father was right behind her. He came storming up like he owned the air. "What is going on?" he demanded. Then he saw Mr. Harlan's face, then the paper, then me, and his expression changed. Not into anger, into panic. He said, too fast, "This is private. This is none of your business." Mr. Harlan looked at him and said, "It's exactly my business." Then he turned to me and said softly, "Do you want the truth in private or in front of everyone?" I thought about 23 years of cleaning floors while Brandon lived like a prince. I thought about every time they said, "You're lucky we took you in." I thought about the basement, the cold, the loneliness, the way they laughed when I cried. I lifted my chin and I said, "In front of everyone." Linda gasped like I slapped her, and my fake dad whispered, "Don't you dare." But it was too late, because I didn't know. The wedding DJ was already calling everyone back to the stage. The music started again, a slow romantic song. People were smiling, laughing, drinking champagne. The bride was glowing. Brandon was standing tall like a king, and I walked in like a storm. Mr. Harlan walked beside me, and behind us, security was already whispering into radios. I didn't even notice at first, because all I could hear was my own breathing. The bride's father stepped onto the stage. He took the microphone, and the room went quiet. He smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of a man about to burn down a lie. He said, "Before we continue, I need to address something important." The guests leaned forward. Brandon looked annoyed. Like, why is this interrupting my spotlight? Then Mr. Harlan said, loud enough for the whole room, "This young woman, Brianna, looks exactly like my late sister." A wave moved through the crowd. Whispers started. People turned to look at me. I stood there, trembling, but I didn't look away. Then he said, "And today, we confirmed something through DNA." You could hear the silence breathe. Brandon laughed once, like it was a joke. Then he stopped. "Because," Mr. Harlan continued, "she is my sister's daughter. She was kidnapped as a baby 23 years ago." The room didn't react at first, like nobody could process it. Then someone whispered, "Oh my God." Then another, "Is this real?" Then the bride covered her mouth. Brandon's face turned pale. Linda screamed, "That's a lie." My fake dad shouted, "This is insane." But Mr. Harlan lifted the paper and said, "This is a legal DNA report, signed, verified." Then he looked at the wedding guests and said the words that ended everything. "I have already called the police." And I didn't know. The police were already walking in. 2 officers entered from the back doors, then 2 more. Calm, focused, not rushed. But the sight of them made Linda's eyes go wild. She tried to move, like she wanted to run. And my fake dad grabbed her wrist like, "Don't, not here." But the officers didn't hesitate. One of them stepped forward and said, "Linda Carson?" She snapped, "That's not me." The officer didn't blink. "Ma'am, we have questions regarding a child abduction case from 23 years ago." The whole ballroom erupted. People stood up. Chairs scraped the floor. Phones came out. The bride started crying. And Brandon? Brandon just stood there like his brain stopped working. Linda screamed, "She's ours. She's ours." And I turned to her and said, loud and clear, "I was never yours." That's when my fake dad shouted, "Brianna, stop. You don't know what you're saying." I stared at him, and I said, "I know exactly what I'm saying." The officer said, "Sir, please step aside." He didn't. So they moved him aside, and then the handcuffs came out. The clicking sound was small, but it was louder than the music, louder than the crying, louder than the shouting. Because that sound meant something simple. Justice. Linda fought. She cursed. She called me evil. She called me ungrateful. She screamed, I saved you. Mr. Harlan's voice cut through like ice. You stole her, and then the officers led them away. Right past the wedding cake. Right past the guests. Right past the family photos. And I watched the people who controlled my life, walk out in cuffs. And I didn't know that wasn't even the worst part for Brandon. Because Brandon suddenly pushed through the crowd and grabbed my arm, hard. He hissed, What did you do? I pulled away. I said, What did I do, Brandon? I was a child. His face twisted. He said, You're ruining everything. My life, my wedding, my future. And I looked at him, and something inside me finally snapped clean. Not anger, not hatred, just clarity. I said, You had a future every day. I didn't. His jaw clenched. He said, You're lying. They said you were lucky. They said you were born to serve. I replied, And you believed them. Because it benefited you. He looked like he wanted to hit me with words. But nothing came out. Because deep down, he knew, and I didn't know. The bride had been listening the whole time. She walked up slowly. Her dress cost more than my entire childhood. Her mascara was running. She looked at Brandon like she didn't recognize him. She asked him softly, You knew? Brandon snapped, No, I didn't know anything. But her eyes didn't believe him. Then she turned to me, and she said, Are you okay? That question hit me harder than the DNA result. Because nobody asked me that in 23 years? My throat tightened. I tried to answer, but all I could do was nod once. And the bride did something I didn't expect. She took off her shawl, and she placed it around my shoulders, like she was covering the part of me that was always cold. Then she whispered, I'm so sorry. And I didn't know. That moment was about to split the family in half, because people started choosing sides instantly. Some guests looked shocked. Some looked angry. Some looked away, embarrassed, like they'd been laughing at a monster for years and never noticed. But Mr. Harlan stayed beside me like a wall. He said, Brianna, come with me. I hesitated. Because even after everything, part of me was trained to ask permission, to be small, to obey. And then I remembered, I didn't belong in the basement. I belonged in the truth. So I said, okay. And I walked out of that wedding, not as a servant, but as someone who finally had a name that made sense. And outside, under the night sky, Mr. Harlan looked at me and said, My sister named you Grace. I froze. I whispered, Grace. He nodded. Tears fell down his cheeks like he'd been holding them for 23 years. She called you Grace because she said, This baby saved me. Even when I'm scared, she makes me feel Grace. I covered my mouth because I didn't remember her, but my body felt something, like a missing puzzle piece clicked into place. And I didn't know. The next morning would reveal how deep the lie really went. The police asked me to come in the next day. They said it gently, like they didn't want to scare me, but I was already scared. Not of police, of memory. Because what if I remembered something? What if I remembered being taken? What if I remembered a face? What if I remembered screaming? But my mind was mostly blank. All I had were feelings. The basement cold, keys jingling, a door locking, a voice saying, Be grateful. That's it. At the station, a detective sat across from me. Her name was Detective Rios. She had kind eyes, but her voice was firm. She said, Brianna, we believe you were abducted when you were a baby. I whispered, Why? She said, Because your birth family has been searching for you since day one. Then she slid photos across the table. Old missing posters. A baby photo, a woman holding a newborn with tired eyes and a big smile. The woman looked like me. Same cheekbones. Same eyes. Detective Rios said, That's your mother. I stared until my vision blurred. I whispered, She's alive. Rios nodded. She's alive, and she never stopped looking. My chest hurt like grief punched it. Then Rios said, There's more. And that's when she showed me the part that made my stomach drop. A file. A name. A date. She said, The couple who raised you changed their identities twice. I blinked. Why? Rios said, Because they knew what they did. Then she leaned forward and said something I'll never forget. They didn't find you. They bought you. I felt like I couldn't breathe. And I didn't know Brandon's story was about to crack open too. Because in the next room, another detective was questioning Brandon. Not as a victim, as a witness. Maybe even more. Because here's the truth people don't want to admit. When a child is abused in a house, the other child always knows something. Maybe not the full story, but enough. And Brandon had enough. Detective Rios told me later that Brandon kept repeating the same sentence. I didn't know, I didn't know, I didn't know. But when they asked him about the basement, he went quiet. When they asked him who gave me chores, he went quiet. When they asked him why he never helped me, he went quiet. And silence is an answer. And I didn't know. The basement would become the loudest evidence of all. 2 days later, officers went to the house. They searched it. And when they opened the basement door, they found things that made even the police look sick. A mattress on the floor, a lock on the outside, old cleaning schedules written like rules, a notebook where Linda tracked my mistakes. Like I was an employee, not a child. And the worst part? A video camera. Pointing straight at the basement stairs. Detective Rios looked at me and said, "They recorded you." My skin crawled. She said, "We're still reviewing what's on it." I wanted to throw up. Because suddenly, I realized, even my suffering had been entertainment to them. And I didn't know the court case would become national news. Once the story leaked, it spread fast. Not because people care about me, but because people love scandal. Servant daughter was kidnapped baby. Wealthy wedding turns into arrest scene. Hidden niece of billionaire found. Reporters waited outside the station. Outside Mr. Harlan's house. Outside my office building. My face was on screens. And for the first time in my life, people were seeing me. But it didn't feel good. It felt exposed. Mr. Harlan hired security. He said, "I won't lose you again." That sentence made my throat close. Because nobody ever promised me that before. And I didn't know. Meeting my real mother would be harder than any punishment. A week later, Detective Rios asked me if I was ready. I said I didn't know. She said, "You don't have to be ready. You just have to be willing." So I went. We drove to a quiet house outside the city. Nothing flashy. No mansion. No luxury. Just a small home with flowers by the door. A woman stood on the porch. Our hands were shaking. Her face was wet with tears before I even stepped out of the car. And when our eyes met, it felt like looking into a mirror that had been missing my whole life. She whispered Grace. My legs almost gave out. Because that name didn't feel strange. It felt familiar. She walked down the steps slowly, like she was afraid I'd disappear. Then she stopped right in front of me and didn't touch me yet. She just looked, like she was counting every detail, like she needed proof I was real. Then she said, "I'm your mother." I couldn't speak. I wanted to run forward. I wanted to run away. I wanted to scream. So I did the only thing my body knew how to do. I stood still and cried. Then she reached out and held my face gently. Her hands were warm, soft, not like Linda's hands, not like the hands that pushed chores onto me. These hands were careful, like she was holding glass. She whispered, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." And I finally said my first full sentence to her. I said I thought nobody wanted me. She broke. She pulled me into her arms like she'd been starving for that moment. And she cried into my hair and said, "I wanted you every single day. And I didn't know healing would feel like grief. Because people think a reunion is all happy. It's not. It's confusing. It's painful. It's like getting back something you needed, but realizing you can't get the time back." I spent nights staring at the ceiling. I kept hearing Linda's voice in my head. Born to serve. I kept hearing Brandon laughing at the top of the stairs while I scrubbed floors. And then I'd hear my real mother's voice, shaking. "I searched for you, and my brain couldn't make peace with it. So I started therapy, and it saved me. Slowly, painfully, but truly. And I didn't know the final twist wasn't just that I was kidnapped. It was why. The prosecutors called Mr. Harland and my mother in. They said they had more evidence. We sat in a room while they explained it. Linda didn't steal me because she wanted a daughter. She stole me because she wanted leverage. Because Mr. Harlan's family, my family, had money, and Linda had been connected to someone who knew about the baby. They were planning to demand a ransom. But then something went wrong. Someone got scared. They panicked. They disappeared with me, then built a new life. And when the ransom failed, they kept me anyway. Not as a loved child, as a reminder, as a secret, as a possession. And suddenly everything made sense. Why they treated me like I didn't belong. Because I didn't. They were always afraid I'd be discovered. So they kept me small, quiet, hidden. Basement. Servant. Because a servant doesn't get questioned. A servant doesn't get searched for. A servant doesn't get seen. And I didn't know. The sentencing day would be the day I finally spoke. Months later, the court day came. The courtroom was packed. Reporters everywhere. Linda and my fake dad sat in orange uniforms. No jewelry, no perfect hair. Just fear. Linda saw me and glared like I was the criminal. My fake dad looked away. Brandon wasn't in jail, but he was there. He looked smaller. No prince energy left. No confident smile. Just a man realizing his whole life was built on cruelty. The judge asked if I wanted to speak. My mouth went dry. My hands shook. But my mother squeezed my fingers. And I stood. I looked at the judge. Then I looked at Linda. And I said, "You didn't raise me. You used me. You didn't save me. You hid me." Then I looked at my fake dad. And I said, "You watched it happen?" Then I looked at Brandon. And I said, "And you enjoyed it?" The courtroom went silent. And for the first time in my life, my voice made powerful people uncomfortable. Good. I continued, "I'm not asking for revenge. I'm asking for my life back. And I'm taking it." Then I sat down. And my chest felt like it could finally breathe. The judge gave the sentence. Long prison time. Charges for kidnapping, fraud, child abuse, evidence tampering. The gavel hit, and that sound felt like a door closing. Not just on them, on my old life. And I didn't know. My real life would start with something small. People think after the court, everything becomes perfect. It didn't. I still had nightmares. I still jumped when people raised their voice. I still felt guilty when I rested. Like resting was lazy because Linda trained me to always work. But my mother taught me something slowly. She'd say, "Grace, you don't have to earn love." At first, I didn't believe her. Then one day, I spilled coffee on the counter and froze, waiting for yelling. My mother just laughed and said, "It's okay, sweetheart." And my whole body shook like it didn't know what safety felt like. That's when I realized healing isn't loud. It's quiet. It's being allowed to make mistakes. It's being allowed to exist. And I didn't know. Brandon would try to crawl back too. One afternoon, he called me. I almost didn't answer. But I did. His voice was low. He said, "I didn't know." I laughed once. Not funny, just tired. I said, "You knew enough?" He whispered, "I'm sorry." I paused. Then I said, "Sorry doesn't give me my childhood back." He started crying. He said, "I lost everything." I replied, "Good, now you know how it feels." Then I said something that shocked even me. "I don't hate you. I just don't want you in my life." Silence. Then he said, "Okay." And that was it. Not closure, but an ending. And I didn't know. The bride would become the most unexpected friend. The bride, Alina, reached out. She said I called off the marriage. I said, "You didn't have to." She replied, "Yes, I did." Because she saw the truth. She saw who Brandon was when power was taken away. And she didn't want a life built on that. We met for coffee. She looked at me and said, "I thought I was marrying a rich prince. But I was marrying a man raised by kidnappers." That sentence hit hard. And we both sat there, two women who had almost been trapped by the same kind of family poison. And we chose ourselves instead. And I didn't know. The biggest lesson would be the simplest. Here's the lesson of my story. Sometimes the people who raise you are not your family. And sometimes the people who share your blood are the ones who love you the most. But the deepest truth is this. You are not what they called you. Not the servant. Not the dumb one. Not the help. Not born to serve. You are a human being. And you deserve safety. You deserve respect. You deserve love that doesn't come with conditions. And if someone only values you when they can use you, that's not love. That's control. So if you're watching this and you've ever felt invisible in your own home, if you've ever been treated like you exist to serve everyone else, I need you to hear me. It can end, not always with handcuffs and DNA tests, but with boundaries, with leaving, with choosing yourself, with saying no more. Because freedom starts the moment you stop begging people to treat you right and you start treating yourself right. So here's my question to you. Where are you watching from? And what time is it there? And if this story hit your heart, comment the keyword DNA so I know you made it to the end. Subscribe if you want more stories like this. Stories where women stop shrinking and start winning. And remember this. They tried to bury me in the basement, but they forgot something. Basements are still part of the house. And one day, the truth always rises.